tell the world who you are and what you do, brother.
Yeah, my name is Butch Cappel, and I do dogs, all kinds of dogs, 4-footed, fur.
Yeah.
I just do dogs.
So tell us how you got your start.
Oh gosh, really, Eric, on that, I should have an answer for that by now, but I don't. I've always been around dogs. My first job, in fact, when I was 10 or 12, was scooping poop behind about a dozen coon hounds. So, and then at some point, I went up to the Texas Panhandle, to Amarillo. Thought I was going to be a horse trainer, and I pull up to somebody's barn, and I had my dog with me, and they see how my dog behaved. They say, "Hey, put the horse back in the barn. I got a dog over here I want you to train." So, seemed like it sort of was meant to be. Been at it ever since.
I gotcha. What is the Cappel Canine?
This is my. We're a boarding and training facility. We also breed our own breed or type of shepherd. We call it a Western Shepherd, but mostly we train for the public and for police departments and such as that. Mostly for the public anymore. Mm-hmm. And security dogs, what the civilian world calls personal protection dogs, is sort of my specialty.
Okay. So what is a Western Shepherd?
A Western Shepherd is, it's a shepherd. It was my attempt. I started, I guess Bart's 10 years old now, so he's our foundation sire. So I guess I started probably 16, 18 years ago. I like shepherds. I like mouths, but I learned in my guard dog company that a lot of times for that kind of work you need a 70, at least a 70-pound dog, preferably a 90-pound dog, so the mouths wouldn't fit there. And all the shepherds I kept running across, and I wasn't in the guard dog business. I had moved here and started my training and working with the public. But the shepherds I was running across were all dysplastic or had lots of health problems. So I popped off one day to somebody and said, "Well, I can make a healthy shepherd." And 6 years later, Black Bart was born, and I knew I had my foundation sire, what I was looking for there. So we bred for structural soundness. We don't breed anything that hadn't been X-rayed. Along the way, I mixed 4 different breeds before we finally came up with Bart and his sister Maggie. And along the way, I don't know how, it wasn't intentional, but along the way, we bred the undercoat out of the shepherd. Our shepherds. And as you probably know, that's about 65-70% of all the shedding that a shepherd will do. So Bart and all his babies we call them low to no shed dogs. They're, these don't shed much. So it's an intelligent dog. We don't breed anything that hasn't been trained to indicate its intelligence level, its trainability. I sort of followed the Danish method of identifying my breeding stock. So all of our breeding stock has been proven mentally as well as physically, and they don't shed. Makes it nice for you.
Oh, that's
awesome.
A
Western Shepherd.
So is there Malinois influence in the Western Shepherd?
Is there what now? Repeat that.
Is there Malinois influence in the Western Shepherd?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The 4 breeds are, in order of majority, German Shepherd, Dutch Shepherd, Malinois, Pitbull. So all 4 of those breeds mixed and matched over about a 8 to 10 year period before I got Bart. And since him and his sister hit the ground, we've just been breeding our stock back to each other. So we've kept that same. We'll try to keep that same percentage of by looking at them, which I understand is not a scientific. DNA would probably say something different, but well, we try to keep that same breed ratio: 50% German Shepherd, 25% Dutch Shepherd, 15% Mal, and 10% Pitbull.
Okay. And what type of pit bull did you use?
Just a good little American Pit Bull Terrier. I can't remember. I don't remember their lines exactly. I didn't do a lot of looking at lines. I just looked at the dogs and of course tested them and trained them and saw how they responded. And that was my criteria for breeding.
That's awesome. That's interesting. It's funny. I love mixed dog concepts. And I stress it these days, especially with the murky waters of the kennel clubs. I stress to people, if you're really that into dogs, then why not just create what you want and put your own name on it and call it a day. Because I think every man differs just a little bit in what they want. So, in your experience training so many dogs, this leads me to a good question. Would you consider certain pit bull terriers to be good personal protection dogs?
Certain pit bull terriers to be good protection dogs? Certain pit bull. No, I wouldn't consider certain pit bull terriers to be good protection dogs. I would, however, consider all pit bull terriers to be good protection dogs. I don't think you have to find certain ones.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense.
So we understand exactly at least my thoughts on pit bulls. You have two of the canine world's superior athletes that are popular in this country. The racing greyhound and the fighting pit bull. These two types have been bred the same way von Stephanitz bred the Shepherd to get the Shepherd, the way Louis Doberman bred to get the Doberman, the way the Martinez brothers bred to get the Argentine Doggo, the way the KNPV breeds for all their police dogs, and they follow a very simple formula. Form will follow function. Period. Whereas for the show ring in this country, predominantly, they do it the other way. They look for a form, and whatever functionality they get from that form, they go with. So when I started trying to come up with my own Shepherd types, I leaned heavily on, if I could have got a hold of some greyhounds, I'd have bred them in there too. So that's how I feel about it. The form follows function, and the pit and the greyhound are the two most function-leading types of dogs probably in the world today. So you can't go wrong if you get some of their blood into your makeup.
Okay. Well, I was asking more or less because it's generally believed that a pit bull terrier is an amazing fighting dog, but when it comes to people, most times they could just walk right up and take them because they're so people friendly. But in your experience, you're saying you've seen a lot of pit bulls that made good protection dogs.
Absolutely. It was. Well, I'm trying to think of there was at one time there was a pit bull when the Border Patrol and those boys started their detection programs, and I can't quote the name on this. I hate to say things without mentioning the source, but I'm pretty sure for quite a while they were using pit bulls in their program for training, and it was a pit bull that had the record for the most drugs ever found. So, it's just a versatile breed. That's all there is to it. It's highly versatile. and you can get out of them whatever you want. The KNPV, according to a gentleman named Appy Camps, who at the time I knew Appy, he was their senior trainer. He said that at one point, I think in the 70s, when their mouths were losing a little bit of muscle and fire, they bred out to Pitbulls and crossed those pups back into their Malinois program. Mm. So it's a great breed. It's capable of anything.
Now, going back to you saying that you were looking for between 70 pounds and 90 pounds, preferably for a personal protection dog. A pit bull, a game-style American Pit Bull Terrier, are generally smaller than that. Can they still do the work of the bigger dog?
Correct. In that regard, the Pit Bull and the Mal have this very much in common. High energy intensity. Mm-hmm. And extremely powerful jaws. I think it's human nature to be intimidated by animals. Mm-hmm. And we've got, maybe it goes back to the cavemen when they was getting eaten by tyrannosauruses. I don't know, but we got this thing about not wanting to be in the jaws of an animal. Mm-hmm. And so, for instance, on the street, most of the people that I've had cause to take to the hospital, when a dog nails them, if it really bites, they'll go to their knees. It's emotionally and mentally depleting as well as physical. Mm-hmm. So you don't always need that much size. Mm-hmm. The size is preferred, but I had a little mixed breed, no telling what he was. 50-pound dog in my guard dog company named Cuz, and Cuz could stop Godzilla. Mm. You know, he was a terrier mix of some sort, and so energy and intensity can more than suffice for weight and muscle. You know, and one thing that I found in breeding, if you can look to the stud side of the package for potential bone density and muscle, mm-hmm. and look to the gyps side of the package for temperament and trainability, and factor those two things in, you can come up with a little more accurate picture of what type of pups you're going to get out, both emotionally and physically.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, just a general rule.
Okay, see, I didn't know that one. Mm-hmm. That's the beauty of this channel, man. Is like I'm learning something every day. Tell me about Canine Pro Sports.
My second favorite thing on earth. Canine Pro Sports started, believe it or not, in Mexico, and was never meant to become a sport or a show or anything of that nature. My biggest guard dog company was in El Paso, Texas, and I had customers in Old Mexico as well as in Texas, New Mexico. Mm. And one of my customers, who was, let's say, he had deep pockets. He had imported a Schützen-2 Roddy from Germany, but he wanted him retrained to be more street oriented. And we would go down to, there's an international park, let me shorten the tale here. Whenever we train this dog in public, we draw a crowd. And Abel, that's the man's name, Abel de Cordova, he got to looking around, realizing that we always drew a crowd. So he asked me if I would, he had a little squeaky voice. He had been a jockey for a little while in America, a little bitty guy, but just energetic, like a Jack Russell Terrier, I guess.
Yeah.
and he came up to me one day and he kept talking about the crowds, the people that were watching. And so he said in his little broken English, whoosh, whoosh, make me show. No schützen, no ring, no schützen. Make me show for the street. So he was serious, and he had money to back up anything he wanted. So I started working on it, and more I started trying to figure out how would you come up with something. At that point in time, this would be mid-90s, early 90s, it was 92, 1992, 93, all the personal protection trainers were slamming the sleeve, happy, equipment-oriented schützen dogs and that sort of stuff. And they had valid, statements, most of them. So I'm thinking I've got to come up with something that doesn't use equipment, but you have to use equipment. Mm-hmm. So how do you do that? And I took about a year, and I called a guy named Michel Moreau, who's no longer with us. He had I guess brought French Ring over to America, and he's probably one of the greatest decoys that ever was. And he was in Florida, I believe, at the time, and he had also started training for a lot of police departments. So he had street experience. Worked with him, Leroy Aslan, who was 25-year USPCA vice president, veteran street cop, over 200 apprehensions. And then any of the local trainers up in New Mexico. Anyway, we finally came up with this idea of these scenarios that we could judge. We put on our first show, Abel doing things the way he does things. He said, what do we need to get the contestants? Because they don't have that many people in Mexico. Only the rich can afford this type of dog, right? Mm-hmm. So I said, well, let's put up some money, because nobody in America does that. So Dog Sport magazine, all the working dog people had back then instead of the internet. So I think we put a notice in there about it, and Abel came up. If you'd have been around for that one, you would have had a great opportunity, because the entry fee, there was no entry fee whatsoever. I just remember there was no entry fee, but Abel, we had two divisions, security, what we now call security, civilian, and patrol, which is police or military. And he put up $1,000 first place prize. It's $1,000, $750, $500, and $250. No, each division. No entry fees or nothing. You just get here. When they got here, he paid for their motel on Friday night. They had breakfast paid for at the hotel that morning, the day of the trial. Before the meeting about the rules and everything, he took us to what had just opened in Juarez, Mexico. It's one of the fanciest restaurants in Mexico. We all got free lunch. He'd advertised, so we put the show on in the Lienzo de Charro, which is the arena of the Cowboys. Mm. And I think we had, it's 2,000, a little over 2,000 people came to watch.
Wow.
And it was really cool sitting there, and you'd make a good move like in the civil agitation. I was doing the civil agitation, and I'd throw a ball to distract the dog and then run in to try to hit the handler with a stick. That's how we decide if you got killed on the streets, right? If your dog ran off after the ball, and I could go in and run in and tap you. And I'd run in and tap somebody, and then you'd hear the whole crowd holler, "Ole! Ole!" It was, anyway, you see why I like pro sports. It was a lot of fun. So came back to this country. Some people heard about it, and then next thing I knew, some more people heard about it, and then went and put on a few trials for some people in some other areas, and then it kept going and going, and then some people called me from Europe, and some people called me from Denmark, and some people called me from Australia, and next thing you know, we were all over the world.
That's awesome.
And that's pro sports.
That's amazing.
That's what I thought.
Man.
Yeah. So, anyway, with COVID and everything, we shut her down, and there got to be a protection sport on every street corner. Mm. And so I just, with COVID and all that, I just decided it was time to quit. I was actually getting a little air sick, and so we just shut her down, and we've been shut down, but we're reopening April 20th with our first trial, so I'm glad you asked me about that.
Nice.
We'll have it right here, and we'll do the hallmark of pro sports has always been one thing different. Well, there's a lot of things we do different than a standard dog sport. But the main thing we do that I don't understand more of them doing is I come from a rodeo background.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm not going to go get on some old big old 1-ton bull and get my head bounced in the dirt unless I got a chance to take it on some money. I don't understand why people would not do the same thing for dog shows. So we have a cash payback system just like they use in professional rodeo. So the more contestants you have, the more the entry fee money actually goes back into the pot. And the more contestants you have, the more money you can win. So as far as I know, we're the only professional dog sport that's ever been created in this country, or maybe any country. I don't know.
Wow. And where is this located?
Right here outside of Fort Worth, Texas, in a little town called Rendon. We're between Fort Worth and Arlington, or Six Flags over Texas is, and right in a busy urban area with lots of hotels and good place to eat if you want to come down.
Gotcha. You mentioned in the Western Shepherd, you got rid of the undercoat, which is awesome. You don't have to deal with shedding. But
right.
How do they do as far as heat and cold tolerance?
On the heat tolerance, we've had 105, 106 average days here at my place for the last 3 or 4 summers. Bart cannot stay inside. He will not be cooped up. He's 105 pound, and you think he's a Malinois with his energy level. Mm-hmm. So he's got a 18 or 20 pound medicine ball because he pops all the regular balls in about a couple hours. And at 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, he'll be in his 40 by 50 pen, and he's playing soccer with himself with that ball. So he has no problem with heat. We've sent one pup to Alaska. The lady that's got him has sent me photos of him. They've got a sled because it's Alaska with their dog, and I guess they go out and chop firewood, and he pulls the sled back with the firewood. So he obviously has no trouble with the cold. So I guess the one single coat's more than sufficient for cold weather, as long as you're not living outside, probably. So that's no problems with the single coat.
That's good. I noticed there's a lot of breeds that are starting to have issues with extreme heat and extreme cold, so that's one thing that's good to stay away from. Let me ask you this. Mm-hmm. Outside of the Western Shepherd, what would be your top 3 favorite breeds?
Just for me personally?
Yeah.
Oh, that's easy. Great Dane, Connie Corso, miniature Australian Shepherd.
Okay. Those are all great breeds. Now, the Great Dane, have you seen any working type Great Danes?
I hope I sent you a picture. My favorite. There's a big old Great Dane standing up, looking probably right over my top of my head. Mm-hmm. His name was Michelob Light.
Okay. And
there weren't nothing light about him. Mick we got kicked out of the AKC. I'll tell anybody that story in private if they want to hear it. They can call me and ask me. So we didn't finish his obedient CD titles, but after that we did bite work with him. He caught one little guy they call the traveling rapist up in Amarillo, Texas, and he caught him for the cops one night when they were chasing him. He happened to chase try to get a woman in my neighborhood. The cops were out at 2 in the morning looking for the guy because they knew he'd run out of this house. I don't know the whole story. And they knocked on my door because they were knocking on everybody's door. Anyway, Mick, I offered, and we tracked, and Mick found him, so he had a nose. I also used him for friends when the Panhandle's a huge pheasant hunting area. In fact, more people fly into Amarillo at pheasant season than they do at Christmas and Thanksgiving combined.
Yeah.
It's huge. They hunt the whole Panhandle. And I had some good friends that would take Mick, and he would flush pheasant for them. So there wasn't much of nothing that dog couldn't do. And I think that's true of all great. Well, physically, the Danes are suffering terribly because of the conformations that they look at. But if you get your old 1950s or 60s Dane, they can do anything. Anything.
I gotcha. Man, that's impressive. Every Great Dane I see is just they usually look pretty breakable, and now I'm looking at this picture now. That's a big dog, man.
Yeah, it's a big dog. He was in that picture there. That was a little bit more of my rodeo days. I was closer to him. I think, if I remember correctly, I weighed about 170, and Mick was hitting the scales at 182.
Holy smokes!
And it was solid muscle.
Holy smokes!
Yeah, yeah, he's a beast, and he taught me so much about dogs, because you get a really intelligent dog that's wants to please, wants to work with you, but won't take no shit. And you'll learn when you're being too harsh on a dog, I guarantee. Because he didn't take no shit.
Right. Now, when it comes to selection, about how old and what are some of the things you do to figure out whether a puppy growing into an adult dog, whether he has it or not, whether he's got it in him to protect?
Okay, here's where I'm going to go probably against popular thought. If you raise a dog right, there's not hardly a thing as a dog that will not protect. I did a seminar in California from the Heart Dog Training Club several years ago, and they had a lady with a Springer Spaniel in there, and she said jokingly, and 2 days later, I had a Springer Spaniel alerting on command and then taking a bite at the fact. It's mostly in how you raise them.
I gotcha.
So those first 7 months for large dogs, well, for medium shepherds, 9 months for the mastiffs.
Okay.
That time is critical. That's when you shape the dog. If you shape correctly, you're going to get the dog you want. Every dog owner, I don't care whether they're a working dog, conformation dog, household pet, whatever, every dog owner I've ever known always gets the dog they deserve. May not be what they had in mind as the dog they wanted, but they will get the dog they deserve. And those first 7 months, and what you do with your dog in that 7 months, are critical to making that dog achieve your dreams. Period.
Okay.
My opinion only. Remember, all folks, if anyone listens to this, it's my opinion. I'm not saying I'm right.
Mm-hmm.
To me, there's a lot of erroneous beliefs about drives and genetics in dogs. If you, it's the genetics of a dog will indicate, or a good indication of the dog's potential. But they're only an indication of that potential because of what his ancestors have done before him. The only way to get to that potential is through training. There's, just like like human athletes. There's German Shepherds and Malinois all around the world with great lineage. They could have been amazing competition dogs or military working dogs that flunked out because the people who raised them or the people who trained them didn't understand how to communicate to the dog what they needed. No different than, let's take high school football players.
Mm-hmm.
The coach doesn't know how to put enough enthusiasm into potentially the best player on the field. Mm-hmm. And he gets discouraged and walks out. Right. When the same kid could have gone to the school down the street and right now be playing quarterback for the LSU Fighting Tigers, you know?
Right.
So, in my opinion, the same thing applies to dogs.
I got you. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So, how many do you have now?
Personal dogs or working dogs? Personal dogs, I have 4. Mm-hmm. I've got, of course, I'm counting Black Bart, my sire. I've got him and one of his daughters, and then I've got a little stray we found on the street about 5 years ago, mm-hmm. named Poppy, and then I got a mini Australian Shepherd because they're fun.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and then of course, we've got a bunch of freeloaders, dogs that rescue groups boarded with me, and then I forgot where they left them, so they've been here for quite a while. So I guess they'd be personal dogs too. So
right.
That's about it.
I gotcha. So what is your plan for the future? Is there any turns you're going to take differently as far as the Western Shepherd, or do you like it where it is?
No, I don't like it where it is. But I haven't. Let's see how to put it. I guess what I'm looking for is maximum consistency. Mm-hmm. In other words, I want every dog in the future to be a cookie cutter copy of Black Bart.
Gotcha.
As it is now, some of my breedings will get a little shorter hair, mm-hmm. Slicker, probably more like the Pitbull. Mm-hmm. And then in other breeds, we'll get, not very often, but once in a while, I get a much longer coat, like you might, and this is all outer coat, there's no undercoats, mm-hmm. but a longer coat like you'll see on some shepherds. Mm-hmm. I'd like to bring that to a consistency of the slicker, shorter ones. And other than that, they can be a little sensitive. Mm-hmm. And they are intensely, what Von Stefan is called in the Shepherd Alsatian standard when he wrote it, they are what's the word? They're intensely devoted to their handler, but they are standoffish of strangers. Whereas for the Shepherd, aloof of strangers is the word he used. Mm-hmm. Bart and all of his are extremely fond of people and intensely devoted to their handler, to the point that if you yell at them, sometimes you throw them in a funk, in a depression. But they are also, which I like, extremely outgoing to everybody. Mm-hmm. There's one thing I would, if you don't mind, I'd like to mention.
Go ahead.
I've got a lot of years in the horse business, mm-hmm. and the one thing that racing people look for in horses, that dog people, I've never heard anyone even come close to mentioning this. We know in horses that there's some horses, when you put them on the track, it can't stand to see another horse in front of them. Mm. They want to be at the front. They want to win. And I'm couching this in human terms because that's the way it was told to me. Mm-hmm. They want to win. same way. When people talk about intensity and prey drive and making a dog tough, all that is great, but I've never seen it more personified than I have in Bart and his offsprings. If most of the dog men I know saw Bart doing a send and taking somebody to his knees, which, by the way, on a send of over 10 yards, no one has ever been able to stand up to Bart when he hit him. No one. He has a fighting style and ability that's unique and is powerful. And when he gets in the fight, you can look at the videos of him and the pictures. He loves it. He absolutely loves it. We've got one video where he hit the guy so hard and was going so fast that the man flipped back over and landed on top of Bart. I mean, his whole body came down on top of him. And all my big boy did was crawl out from underneath the guy and continue shaking him. Like nothing had ever happened. He wants to win.
I love that.
And most dogs are the same way. You find the breeds, or the dogs, because it's in all breeds, that want to win, and I don't give a damn about how much prey drive they got. They are going to be on top every time.
Right. So, tell me a little bit about your feeding regimen. What kind of diet do you have your dogs on?
I try to stick to quality dog food. I don't know if I should plug them. I'm actually in the middle of switching around for several reasons, but I supplement with boiled chicken. I use nothing but chicken leg quarters. I don't use the whole chicken. The leg quarters are the dark meat, and the dark meat that way because of the iron that's in it, so they get a little higher iron percentage and a little more fat, so I get a higher energy level out of them. Other than that, that's about it. When I just go with the commercial food in that. I have looked at raw. I have thought about raw, and my wife told me I wasn't going to feed raw. So I've experimented with all deer meat as a diet. Raw works great. You really need to know what you're doing to do it. But to me, if I could feed exactly the way I wanted to, I would use about a third of my diet would be a high quality kibble. Some of the diamond foods are great. That's what I'm staying with lately. A lot of the specialized foods made for bulldogs are really great. I'd put about a third of that in their feeding bowl and 2/3 raw. Mm-hmm. And the only reason the main reason I'd use the dried kibble is because I don't care how good you think you are at figuring up nutrients. You can always come up short of some vitamins or minerals that could cause you harm in the long run. And by throwing in just a little bit of an AFCO-approved food, you know that you're going to have the correct mineral and vitamin balance for the rest of the dog's life. So that's how I do it.
Gotcha. What advice would you give somebody that wants to get into personal protection dogs?
True personal protection trainers are probably not as numerous as the sport dog trainers. My advice would be find anybody you can find that's working dogs and doing bite work with dogs. Whether you like it or dislike it, get in, get your feet wet there, and then go to every seminar for every sport that you can possibly find. Pick up every video from every trainer that's on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Buy every book that I ever write in the future. Got to get a plug in there somewhere, Eric.
Right.
And, just the main thing is to be with dogs, look at dogs, watch dogs. I didn't realize when I got the guard dog company, I had worked for some of the major dog food companies. I had access to every pet book in this country. I read them all a lot. And when I got in the guard dog business, I found out that all the rules I'd learned about dogs from the professional dog trainers and all that stuff, mm-hmm. My guard dogs that I had in my guard dog company, they hadn't read those books. They didn't give a damn about genetics. I was dealing with some dogs that you know, they were dangerous in a lot of cases.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to change and learn a lot. And what dawned on me finally was what I had picked up as a kid, scooping poop behind them coon hounds, watching those hounds run at night, watching them hunt, watching them interact with each other, had been more of an education than I ever realized about dogs and their natural way of doing things. Mm. So I would say, after spread yourself out and look for all the information you can, I'd say get around some dogs and just watch the dogs. Watch them play. Watch them get angry. Watch how they interact. Watch what they do after a fight. If one makes up for another one doesn't make up. Learn what's going through your dog's mind, and you will be a really, really good trainer of anything you attempt to go for.
I gotcha. And where can people find you?
YouTube would be a good place to get it, in our webpage at CappelCanine.com.